What is up, guys? Specstar here today with my fifth and final battle of the pools round of the NPL tournament, and this is for all the marbles. I don't need to win this game to advance to the final 16 bracket. All I need to do is KO 4 Pokemon to advance, so that is going to be the key number to focus. I need 4 KOs in this game. And I am going to be going up in it against Psychedelic, and he's got himself a team consisting of Starmie, Mega Diancie, Skarmory, Landorus Incarnate, Roserade, and Incineroar. Landorus Incarnate, of course, is not restricted. It can be Sheer Force, it can be that special little set that smashes through teams, but we've got some things that we hope can help us deal with it a little bit. And I should have a team builder in the description of this video if you guys want to check it out. I got a pretty odd team, but a little bit of a recap of it. I've got Waterium Z Latios, 3 attacks and Roost. Heatran is going to be Choice Scarf. Crocodile is going to be physically defensive because what else would Crocodile be? Comfey is going to be Modest with HP investment and an Expert Belt. Electros is Assault Vest, and Gastrodon is going to be specially defensive. Now, looking at the matchup, there weren't too many big surprises on what he brought, just one huge surprise. I really scratched my head trying to be prepared for Haxorus, which I was quite concerned about, and it didn't come, so that was a lot of my thought process that went into that just to see the thing not show up here. So, you know what? I'm a little bit relieved as much as I am frustrated that I did all that prep for it. It is relieving to not have that big threat there, which does have the potential to maybe do something before I get my 4 KOs, but he does still have some real threats in Mega Diancie, Landorus Therian, or Landorus Incarnate. Landorus Therian would also be a threat to this, but Landorus Incarnate. And I'm going to have to keep track of those things and try to play carefully in this game and hope I can get my 4 KOs in advance. So, let's start this thing. Let's get the ball rolling here. I'm going to lead off with my Eel, which is basically just real safe lead. Against this team, there wasn't really anything that punished it too much. Just a pretty safe option here. He's going to lead off with Mega Diancie, and ordinarily Eel would probably force this thing out. Against a Diancie team, Eel could very well have Flash Cannon. Mine does not, but there is a decent chance that this thing would force him out. But the battle's just started. I really don't know how aggressive, I really don't know what his play style is going to be in this game, so I'm really just going to err on the side of caution at the start here and make the play into my Gastrodon, which is the safer move, because I really don't want to take a Diamond Storm on my Eel here, especially not with Starmie still being there intact. So he's going to switch out into Roserade, and I'm going to switch out my Gastrodon. That switch is going to work very well for him. He's going to force me the hell out. I actually go into my Latios. Reason I go into my Latios, I'm fully expecting this thing to have Hidden Power Ground. I'm not going to risk my Heatran taking that. Latios will force this thing out, quite generally. He did make the switch out with his Diancie, so I imagine he wouldn't want to chance his Roserade getting hit by something like a Psychic here. Even a Draco Meteor, it's really not going to appreciate it too well. So I'm actually just going to make the aggressive play here and think that he's probably switching. If he does switch, he has 2 options. Incineroar, which is a little bit more likely, and Diancie, which is a little bit less likely. But Diancie isn't Mega Evolved, so it is a better switch into Latios than it otherwise might be. And he also could predict me to make some kind of play around Incineroar, so that is another option. So here I'm just going to go for my Waterium Z, which covers Incineroar and it covers Diancie, which I think are the most likely things here. And he is going to switch out into his Diancie in turn 3. I'm going to be able to hit that thing with a Hydro Vortex and get rid of it. And that is just an awesome turn for me. I get my first out of 4 KOs, but I got to stick to this. I need 3 more to advance to the next round. And it's just really great to see that threat go down before it got a chance to even Mega Evolve. So here he is going to go ahead and bring out his Starmie. And in this situation, Latios will almost definitely take a hit from this thing, unless he's some kind of spec set. But I'm almost definitely taking a hit, getting off a lot of damage, and even at its highest roll, a KO with Thunderbolt is very nice for me, considering I just need 4 KOs. So I'm just going to stay in on this thing and click Thunderbolt. If he does just opt to go for an Ice Beam, and I have to switch my Latios out the following turn, assuming I don't get the KO, I can still salvage it and make use out of it, so it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Plus, I could potentially get this thing in range of Gastrodon to have that thing come in and be able to potentially take it out. So that's my thought process there. He's going to go for Ice Beam, and he's going to outspeed me and do a little bit more damage than the highest roll from no item. So he's not Specs. He would have done more if he was Specs. He's not Life Orb, so I'm going to guess he's probably Timid Expert Belt. He could also be Wise Glasses or the much less likely Never Melt Ice, but I'm leaning towards Expert Belt, which I think would be the most probable. So here I am forced out. I am going to make the play here into my Gastrodon, and he is actually going to show the Recover here, which is definitely a nuisance for me. This thing becomes more annoying for me to deal with. He's going to switch out the Starmie as I actually just opt to Earthquake. Earthquake could just kind of let me get off some good damage on Starmie, essentially just negate its Recover, give me time to kind of see how he is reacting to it, and it also hit Roserade if that wanted to come in on this thing, which it very well might have. So here he's going to bring in his Skarmory, and he's going to make the switch into Incineroar as I actually go out and do Comfey. And the reason I went out to Comfey is if his Skarmory was going to opt to get up rocks, those hazards were going to start to be really annoying for me. But if I brought in Comfey, I would be able to get rid of his rocks with my Defog. And I wasn't really concerned about in this matchup Skarmory being Iron Head. I really didn't think it would be. So my Comfey would have been beating that Pokemon, especially since with my Expert Belt I am able to 2-KO it. But he actually makes the play into Incineroar, which is going to stifle me here, because Incineroar, even if it's not attack invested and it's fully invested in bulk, it is still doing too much damage to Comfey if it does have Flare Blitz. So I am actually just going to be forced out here. I'm going to go out into my Crocodile because I figure he may opt to go for either the Flare Blitz or the knockoff there. Let me pause it to catch up. I thought Flare Blitz or knockoff / Lariat would be most likely there. He instead goes for a U-turn, which is a good turn for him. I made the play into my Crocodile because getting rocks up there could have been potentially very nice. Instead, he's going to U-turn out into his Landorus. So I have a decision to make here. So the way I see it, he's got a few options here. I did not think he would be Focus Blast in this matchup. Honestly, what I was expecting was Earth Power, Gravity, Grass Knot, and Psychic. That's what I was thinking about his Landorus potentially being here. May have been Focus Blast. I wasn't really thinking that. Now, if he was Modest, which very well could have been Modest or Timid, depending on if he wanted to be faster than Crocodile, how much he prioritized that. But if he was Modest, I would have needed Earth Power to do the min roll to take me out. If he was timid, I had a better chance of surviving it. And also, I thought there was a real chance here that he would just go for the gravity, thinking about me going into Electros or something like that, maybe even getting up rocks or U-turning, something like that. And because of that, I thought there was too good of a chance that Crocodile was just going to be able to survive this turn. And I'm just going to stay in and click Knock Off because it's really nice to get rid of that Life Orb. It makes Gastrodon a lot better being able to deal with this Pokemon as well as Latios. And B, the damage on Landorus is also very useful for me. So I'm going to prioritize going for my knockoff here. And he is going to go for a U-turn here. So he's going to show to be Life Orb, which is not a surprise to me. He's going to go into his Skarmory. Knocking that off is still nice for me. And here I'm pretty sure I'm just going to be faster than his Skarm. And I just want to get my Taunt off. Not letting the thing get up rocks, not letting the thing heal up. It's definitely nice for my team if I can get this Skarmory worn down. Although I don't have too much of physical presence, I do need to rack these KOs up. I've got 1, I need 4, and I'm definitely paying a lot of thought to that. So I'm going to show off my Taunt here. And it is going to prove to be useful as he tries to go for his rocks. And you know what? Anything you can do, I can do better. I'm going to go ahead and set up my rock. No, I went for knockoff here. That's my mistake. Forgot that turn. I actually went for knockoff because I thought he would be forced to switch out there. And Roserade, I could have done a significant amount of damage to it depending on the set. He's actually going to show to be max HP, which makes me think he may well be especially defensive, or he could also just be an HP speedy type set. But I do know he either has HP or some kind of weird defensive investment without HP, but I'm pretty sure the thing's max HP. So that's a good thing to take note of. It is nice to knock off the thing's Black Sludge. Anything he really could have went into, I would have been very happy to knock off. It was possible he went into Landorus predicting rocks or something like that. So, I'm going to throw out my knockoff here. I'm going to get some information on Roserade and knock off its Black Sludge, which is nice for reducing its durability, especially considering it being bulky Black Sludge. I'm assuming it has some kind of recovery. So this thing is, of course, going to force my Crocodile out here. And I'm just going to make my switch out here into my Latios as he's going to go out into his Skarmory. So that turn is going to go pretty well for me. I thought he would most likely click his healing move there, or if he did go for an attack, I would have assumed it would have been some kind of grass move like Giga Drain. So I will go in my Lati here thinking that I'm almost certainly positive to survive that turn. And I'm gonna get lucky as he goes on his Skarmory, which is a pretty nice switch for me as we both pull the switches here. I definitely have the favorable matchup as the Skarmory is not going to be walling my Latios. Here I'm going to actually pull the double into my Crocodile because I was expecting him to go Incineroar and I wanted to get at my rocks, but he's actually going to go for a Brave Bird, so I'm going to miss the chance to get my KO on that with Thunderbolt. But he's either predicting me, thinking I may want to predict him to switch out and click a move that hits Incineroar, or potentially Roost Up, and I'm assuming that's what's happening here. He's making that prediction with his Brave Bird to get off useful damage on Latios and actually probably take the thing out considering how low it is. So I will bring in my Crocodile here, but Skarmory is still pretty damn good for me. Based on how low he is, and based on what I've done before, and he hasn't seen Stealth Rock yet, I am assuming here that he's going to predict a Taunt. So I'm not going to bother clicking the Taunt because, you know, the threat of the Taunt in this case is going to have the same impact as actually clicking Taunt, and I'm just going to go for my rocks here, which are really nice. Allow me to put a lot better offensive pressure on him. They're very good for Heatran being able to wear down Incineroar, and he's going to go out into his Landorus Incarnate here. That thing, of course, is going to force my Crocodile out. and U-turn is what I thought was most likely there. I go into my Gastrodon, which can take it, and at this point, with the Antsy gone, I didn't need Gastrodon that much, so if he was just going to go for an Earth Power, and he did wind up to KOing me, that wasn't the end of the world, and I was willing to risk that. I knew Crocodile still had value, as he still doesn't really appreciate being knocked off, and he does have both a spinner and a defogger, and having the potential to reset rocks is something to think about. He's actually going to go out into his Skarmory here on my Gastrodon through the U-turn, and I'm just going to go into my Crocodile. I can keep the thing worn down with Taunt, and if he does roost up, I make sure that thing can do nothing. He does get his rocks up here, which are definitely annoying for me, but if we're both getting worn down, it might be better for me to think about getting... It might be better for me to think about getting my 4 KO, since as I mentioned, as you guys have heard me repeat more times than you probably would have liked to. I don't need to win, I just need 4 KOs. I'm going to make a safe play here and just click Taunt on his Skarmory. The way he's played with his Skarmory is somewhat aggressive so far. I'm thinking, especially considering my team, I don't really have that much of a physical attacker aside from my Crocodile, which does beat the thing. He has been more aggressive with it. I don't think he's just going to switch it out. I think he may want to Taunt or even click something like Spikes or Whirlwind. So I'm just going to go for my Taunt here. He attempts to Roost, so I'm going to get that turn right. I see that thing continuing to wear down. I need to start claiming these KOs. I just need 4, and it's nice to see this thing weakened. I'm just going to go for my knockoff here. If he does stay in, that's not bad for me. If he does switch out, that's also not bad for me. I'm content to just be clicking knockoff here. And he's actually going to switch out into his Roserade here. I go for my knockoff. He's going to barely survive at 5, but he is 100% Force Click Synthesis. He dies to rocks. I get to go in my Latios here free of charge, as he does click his Synthesis. And I'm going to be aggressive here again, and I'm actually just going to click my Surf, thinking he might want to go into Incineroar. He instead goes to Starmie. Unfortunately for him, I will crit that, but I'm going to get safe here, going into my Eel, because Latios still really pressures him, and that's a priority to me. With my Eel in on Starmie, I'm going to click the knockoff, and he's actually going to show a pretty cool tech here and go for a Reflect type, which, you know, that can make things a little bit interesting here. His Starmie is now an electric type, but unlike Eel, it doesn't have no weaknesses. I'm going to knock that thing's Expert Belt off, and here I just want to Volt Switch out. If he goes into Landorus, that's not bad for me, so I'm very safe to just click my Volt Switch. He goes for Recover, I Volt out. He gets his health back, but he's still low. I decide that I want to go into my Heatran because I'm, of course, Scarfed Heatran, and based on his investment, he is not going to be bulky. Not very much bulky, at least. Doesn't have too much investment. My Heatran definitely forces this thing out. And I could click Fire Blast here, which would take him out, but I didn't want to give Incineroar the free switch in, so as I've been doing this game, I'm going to once again predict Incineroar and click my Earth Power instead, and I am going to be made to regret that as he goes out into Landorus. Absolutely faced me with that turn, as my Earth Power is not going to touch the thing, and I'm just going to go ahead and sack off my Crocodile. Crooked Hillary, who I forgot to make female, you have done your job. You earned your pay. You were there just for Haxorus, and you managed to do something against a Haxorus-less team. So I'm gonna bring in my Eel on the Landorus. Just a Pokemon that puts a little bit of pressure on. It's not looking like I'm gonna be at any point removing this hazards based on the flow of the game. So I didn't want to use one of my rock switch-ins on Laddie here, even though it did pressure this thing pretty nicely. I instead want to go into my Eel, and I'm actually just going to click Volt Switch, being a little bit aggressive, thinking this thing's definitely going to want to switch out here, probably in the form of a U-turn, which it does opt to be. The thing is getting weakened though, and he goes out into Incineroar. I do Volt Out. Very happy to see damage get off on this thing because I'm playing towards my Heatran win condition here. I'm going to bring my Gastron in on the Incineroar, and I'm going to think a little bit about this turn. So, considering his options, he could leave the thing in to potentially go for a knockoff on my Gastron, predicting me to want to recover or something like that. He could go on a Roserade, and his Roserade is going to be at... it's not showing me the percentage, but Roserade's weakened, and it would be able to heal up on me clicking... or it would be able to come in on me clicking Scald or Ice Beam, or of course Recover and be able to heal up with Synthesis, but it would not, based on what I've seen from the calcs and kind of figured in my mind, it would not be able to come in safely on my Earthquake. He could go into Skarmory, but at this point I'm not really thinking it's Spike Skarmory because Roserade has spikes and he hasn't shown it yet. So it's really not the end of the world for me if he does go into Skarmory. Skarmory is not too useful, and if he recovers up with his Skarmory, I also get to recover up with my Gastrodon, and that's pretty nice for me, so that's not really a losing scenario. If he does want to go something like Starmie, I'm also going to want to have clicked Earthquake. So I'm just going to click my Earthquake here, which covers a lot of the worst things he could potentially do. He is going to U-turn out and go into Skarmory, so the Earthquake's not going to pay off there. But that wasn't really the scariest thing in the world for me, him going out into Skarmory. I will now get to heal up with my Gastron, assuming he's not Taunt, which he doesn't seem to be. Now I just want to go ahead and click Scald, kind of feel out the damage, and if I burn the thing, that's nice. He instead goes out into his Starmie, and unfortunately for him, I'm going to burn him, which sucks a little bit for him. I'm just going to click Earthquake. It does quite a bit of damage. This is the thing. Whether he's able to use his Recover and stall me out of my Earthquakes before I take him out comes down completely to rolls. Whether he's able to heal more than I'm doing, it's rolls. I think I did like 40 to 48 or something like that. And I needed to do 44 for him to have a neutral Recover. So it was an interesting little pickle here. My thing is, he may be able to stall me out of Earthquakes by staying in and clicking Recover, but my smartest play, I believe, is just to throw off a few Earthquakes to see if he's going to stick stubborn to clicking Recover. I don't need all my Earthquakes. I can throw off a few to just kind of feel him out and see if he wants to play this Recover game. It is my safest option here. So I'm just going to keep going for my Earthquake. He decides to go for his Ice Beam. He doesn't want to play these games. Ice Beam is not going to do much, and Starmie is going to go down to Earthquake. I've got 2. I need 2 more. 2 down, 2 to go. But he does still have some things that are definitely threatening to me, and it's 5-4 for me. It's not quite as in my favor as it looks, I think. I'm still feeling a little bit nervous here. He still has some threats that can definitely annoy me in this matchup, but seeing Starmie go down is definitely making this thing easier. Here, he is going to bring out his Roserade, always forcing my Gastrodon out. And I'm actually going to go into my Electros. I'm still being very cautious about my Latios' Rocks turns, especially because looking at his team, Latios is starting to look like a win condition. I need a little bit of damage on Roserade, and again, it's looking like the hazards that are on the field now are going to stay on the field. It's not looking like either of us are going to remove them. And Incineroar can get whittled down if it gets in range of Surf, and if Roserade can get in range of Ice Beam, then I have the potential to win with Latios. So I'm going to be very careful with this Pokemon and conserving it. I'm going to bring out my Eel here, which I can hopefully get a little bit of damage off on the Roserade, or at least just let me get the slow Volt out here. Eel is a Pokemon I can kind of throw out here. I don't really need to save it that much. Just not a very top priority for me. So here I just want to click my Volt switch. It'll allow me to get my Heatran in on this thing for free. And even if he does switch out to his Incineroar, which is the mon that can take my Fire Blast, I'm able to get this thing chipped. If I can get Incineroar more chipped, I set up win conditions with both Heatran and my Latios. He's going to go into Skarmory and throw that thing off to my Fire Blast, so I've now got 3 KOs. I just need one more. So we'll see how this goes. He brings out his Landorus. I know this thing is Life Orb, so I'm going to click my Fire Blast. Please land, please land, please land, please land. And he goes back into Incineroar, actually scouting for my Scarf here. So he doesn't lose the Landorus, and I don't get my 4th KO here. But both the Landorus and the Incineroar get chipped by the rocks, and Incineroar gets chipped just a little bit by the Fire Blast as well. Very nice to see. Incineroar, it doesn't come back in, so I've set up Heatran and I've set up Latios, and both are looking really good right now. So here I'm going to switch out into my Gastrodon, take some damage from Hazards. He's going to go for Darkest Lariat, do 34. I'm just throwing out Gastrodon. It's done its job. I don't need it here. He's going to get a crit there, but I believe it was a roll anyway from the 2 Lariats, so I'm not really going to complain about that. And I did also burn the Starmie, which was a little bit significant. It let me get that KO on the Starmie. Here I'm actually just going to bring in my Latios. And the reason I brought in my Latios, I just really wanted to force the fact of a KO. I didn't want to play around with, we kind of switch around and then maybe he gets a Rock Polish with his Landorus. I didn't want to play those type of games. I just want to force the issue here, click my Surf. I don't really see how he'd want to be able to switch in on this thing. And even if he does survive it, I don't think it can. I definitely do not think it can. But even if it did, this thing would not be able to come back in again. So I go for my Surf here. Incineroar drops, and we are moving on to brackets here. And definitely a relief off my chest, because as much as if you guys know me, you know I love to win, and that's important to me. I came in this game, I just wanted to get enough to advance to the brackets, and that was my top priority. But now we've accomplished that, but there's one last thing to do: win this goddamn thing. So he brings in his Roserade on my Latios. He is gonna be able to take an Ice Beam from here, so I'm just gonna go for my Roost, thinking he's not able to do enough damage to my Latios, and I'm kind of positioning Latios to potentially go for the win here. I will Roost up here, and he is gonna go for his Hidden Power Ground. I guess I'm assuming he either just kind of conceded that there wasn't too much Roserade could do to hit Latios, or he was predicting the Heatran switching, which I wasn't gonna make there, because I do have the Roost here. So now I'm in a very good position with my Latios. I'm pretty sure he's not able to KO me here, and my Ice Beams are almost definitely going to do more than he's able to Synthesis off. Plus they've got more PP than Synthesis. I'm just able to click them. Roserade's going to barely survive there and get up its layer of spikes. He's finally completed his Hazards, but the Roserade is going to go down here. And we know the Landorus is Life Orb, so it is not going to be able to outspeed my Latios. And Latios is going to be able to KO the thing with Surf. And this has to be a longer video than normally. I kind of feel that. Oh yeah, much longer than normal. You know what, I do apologize to you guys, because this is not... I generally like to have my videos be 10, 13 minutes, around that range. This one is going to be about double that, but this was a significant game in my tournament run, and I wanted to pay it more attention. I wanted to explain my thoughts more concisely, and there was quite a few plays in this game where I had a few very real options, and I wanted to do my best to explain to you guys exactly why I made the choices I did throughout this game, considering the importance it did have. So we are going to finish this. We're going to finish the pools round at 4-1 plus 11, which will be good enough to put us in first place in the pool. The top two advance. The second, there's Eddie, who is 4-1 plus 13, but the first tiebreaker is not differential, it's actually head-to-head, and I have head-to-head over him, so that positions me in first. Regardless of that nonsense, we will both be advancing, so you know what, that might even be a rematch down the road. Maybe even the first round. You guys never know how this thing works out. Not sure if they're doing seeding or anything. If they are doing seeding, probably wouldn't be our opponent, but you never know. You never know how this thing's gonna wind up. So, anyway, we will be advancing. There was definitely a Pokemon that stood out in our team as the MVP of the pools round, not the brackets round. Brackets round still yet to come. But there was a Pokemon that definitely stood out as the MVP of our pools run, and that is going to be Latios, which is going to lead the team by far in KOs, and it's going to come up in a big way in this important matchup, getting 4 KOs. Definitely a strong showing for it, especially setting the tone early with the Hydro Vortex on the Diancie. And when I told people I know about the pick, when I was taking Latios, which if you guys don't remember was my first round pick, 7th overall, I got chastised a little bit. They were saying that I took Latios too early, but just to finish this off, I have a little bit of a message for all those Latios haters. Public service announcement, baby.